money is what creates the most problems. It's nice to have it, but you've probably talked to a lot of business owners, right? And probably people that are at the end of their career or finishing, their life. It would be fair to say that most of those people, at the end of their career or even on their deathbed, they're not thinking, oh, if I'd have done this, I could have made another $1 million. They're thinking, oh, if only I had more time with so-and-so, or it's more family oriented. It's more experiences. It's not about the dollar.
Welcome to Legacy's Journey, where we talk about creating what outlives you. I'm your host, Cameron Williams, owner of Kinley Consulting, where we focus on strategic financial growth for marketing agencies so that they can live the dream life they deserve and not being a slave to their business. And of course, we do that through CFO services. Now, what makes this good? I told y'all season 2, we're all focused on having $1 million agency, the people's journeys to that, and the people who are already doing it successfully. So, I had to kind of search pretty deep. I'm not going to lie to you. And I was like, wait a minute. I know some great people already. And we were already traveling on a trip. So I was like, you know what? I have to ask you to come on. So ladies and gentlemen, Brad Ball is here. I mean, you're going to see how crucial this is going to get. Welcome.
Thanks for inviting me.
All right. So I know how great you are. They don't. So tell them name of the company, how long you've been around, and then we'll jump into it.
Now, I don't know if I'm that great, but the name is Brad Ball, founder of Ardent Creative. Back in 2005 is when we started. I started in 2000. So it's a full service agency. So obviously you think of the date 2005, that's pre-Facebook, pre-iPhone, pre all those days. And so obviously marketing and digital marketing has evolved over the years, but our roots are traditional marketing. And we also have a software company that we created because we have in-house developers. So we have in-house designers, marketers, developers, account managers. Very rarely do we send anything overseas or outsource. It's all done internally within our own shop.
You see how he said that just so calm, like running two companies. Oh, we got in-house stuff. It's all right. Y'all going to see how great this is. All right. So we're going to start this by going back. So let's start with, what was your relationship with money like growing up? Because we found that people fall into one or two categories. Either my parents had it, so, it's abundant. I know I can always get some. Or, hey, it was a little bit of a struggle. I knew not to ask my parents for money because money was tight and that affected me in a different way. So which category would you fall in?
Honestly, I'd say it's a bit of a mix. I never thought we didn't have anything. My dad worked hard. He workaholic. And so needs were always met, but didn't know anything about money. Now, when I started to make it myself, I always spent it. So I started working when I was like 12 with my dad. And so I worked to buy baseball cards. And so, I still have those baseball cards today, ironically enough.
And they probably are worth a ton of money because the more years.
Well, two of my best or my favorites, I have Troy Aikman's rookie card and I have Jerry Rice's rookie card. So,
I don't know.
Jerry Rice's is probably the best.
I'm about to say, but you think 100 is too low?
Jerry Rice's is more than that, yeah. I also have a signed football by him. I have a picture where I met him 2019 probably. So, yeah. So as it relates to my history with money, never felt that we were without. My dad was a single family income. So mom stayed with the kids. But at the same time, I saw how my dad struggled at times because, my mom would spend money, and there was one time we had a whole bunch of credit card bills my dad didn't know about, and watching him navigate that. And that was something that definitely had an impact on me early on.
Okay. That makes sense. So now rolling into that one. So if you can go back to probably 2005, when you made your first sale, how did that make you feel? Because to go from like, oh, okay, I see my parents, not necessarily struggle, but it was a challenge. Then you start your own business. Now you make your own first sale. Tell me what that felt like.
You're going to have to go back farther than that to 2000. And my story is a little different because I quit my job at a university to take care of my mom because she was sick. And so I knew I could make the similar amount of money working half the time, which would allow me to take care of her. And I had already an existing small set of business. But if I look back to being, 21 years old, uh, I think a lot of there was fear. I didn't really know much. And even when I look back as, man, I could have done things way differently and been in a different position. But it's obviously exhilarating to get your first sale, especially a big one, like when we land a new big client. We generally don't do RFPs because a lot of times it's my opinion that when you go out for an RFP, typically the company already knows who they want to use. They're just going through the process to either use it as a negotiation tool to get a better price, to checks and balances in terms of price. But anytime you land something big like that, it's very exciting. So, but yeah,
That's
mine was more of
really
a slow play over the years. I didn't just, hey, I'm going to quit and start a business. I built it up over time, and then 2005 teamed up with my business partner, hired our first employee, and that's how we've grown ever since. Or just, you know, I believe in steady growth over time. I don't believe in the hockey stick because with agencies and service oriented businesses, the hockey stick can sometimes give more problems, and because you got to be able to handle that growth. And if you're not ready for it, it could actually be a detriment to your business.
okay. Okay. So let's talk about that. So you start the company, you partner with somebody, and then you hire the first employee. What are some of those things that you learned? Like, ooh, it's not me doing it. I have an employee. What are some of those lessons that you remember way back then that maybe now is second nature?
Um, I think the big thing it took me a long time to learn was to let go. And so,
Mm,
as someone that does everything, I do the design, I can do marketing, I do the books, but there comes a point where you can't do everything, and you have to let people learn, but also fail. And if you don't do that, you're limiting the growth of your company because it's solely revolved around you. And we're in an interesting time right now. I call it the dawn of the influencer, where everything's about the person and not as much of the company. And that's also, I think, to a detriment because companies are bigger than one person, and they should be. And so that way, when clients call, they're not just getting me, they're getting a team of 20 or 30 people that are ready to meet their needs. And so you can't get to that point without learning to delegate, to trust, and to release. And as business owners, why do we start a business in the first place? It's so that our lives don't revolve around working 50, 60 hours a week and doing everything. It revolves being able to take off and spend time with our families. And for me, that's probably the most important thing. I've made a lot more money over the years, but family's always been a priority for me and my business partner, and really our employees. And if your home's in order, your work's going to be in order.
oh, I like that. If your home is in order, your work will be in order. I I partially go ahead and explain that because I think some people think the other way, right? Like if I'm making money and everything is paid for, then everything is good and everything else will fall into place. Whereas you're saying the opposite.
Generally, money is what creates the most problems. It's nice to have it, but you've probably talked to a lot of business owners, right? And probably people that are at the end of their career or finishing, their life. I would It would be fair to say that most of those people, at the end of their career or even on their deathbed, they're not thinking, oh, if I'd have done this, I could have made another $1 million. They're thinking, oh, if only I had more time with so and so, or it's more family oriented, it's more experiences, it's not about the dollar.
I mean,
So
I
now as it relates to if your home is in order, your work's gonna be in order. I can give you an example. If you're having problems is in your marriage or
mhm.
your family's in disarray, that stress will bleed into your work life. And if it's out of balance, you're going to see your work um, decrease. And that's both just capacity wise, speed wise. Now, also on the flip side, if your work is in disorder, you can take that and it can impact your home. So there is a balance there. But And it's something that's hard to navigate, but that's always been a priority for me, is to try to keep those things in line.
So then, are you saying that you believe, because there's some people who argue work-life balance doesn't exist. You're saying you think it does.
I think it has to. I mean, there's some people that love to work, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same point, what do you value the most? Is it work or is it people? And I mean, there is some fine lines to that. So we have a phrase, not work-life balance. We work to live, not live to work.
We work to live, not live to work. Okay, yeah, I feel it. I feel it.
So we have a design, and it's basically, instead of we have a greater than sign. So working to live is greater than living to work.
I like it. Because I know there's some people like work-life balance does not exist, therefore, it is what it is. You just got to figure it out. There are some seasons that are better than others, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, yeah. I feel like I'm on the fence with it because, like, for example, with tax season, like everybody in my house knows it's tax season. That's going to work longer. So you already know February through April 15th. It just is what it is.
yeah, and you're in a different situation. I have friends that are CPAs, accountants, and see that, and they work a lot. They put in tons of hours. And so as it relates to those things, is when you're working hard, what are you doing to make an impact to those that are most special to you? How are you being present for them on a daily basis, even outside of those hours? Because as business owners, there are going to be times that take a lot of our mental focus and energy, but making sure we are present for those that we love in the midst of that is what's important.
I agree. And I'm being slow to respond because I'm trying to make sure you don't hear the clearing of the throat. All right, let's keep it rolling. So now let's take it from that journey. So now you had the first sale. Let's talk about your biggest sale. So this could be like the biggest project you've ever done or the biggest monthly retainer. When you get that, how did that make you feel? Was that a validation of we're on the right track? Oh, this is that much easier, etc. Like, what can you remember about whatever that biggest sale was? And you don't have to say the amount if you don't want to, but just give us your thoughts.
I mean, yeah, it's 100% validation. I mean, they believe in what we're doing. And I mean, we've had multiple six-figure contracts. And so, we have a wide range. We don't have all our eggs in one basket, but some of our bigger development projects are obviously going to be much higher ticket items. And, it's interesting. A lot of times we'll work with a client on small projects, which, you could call them lead magnets, but they're different than that, but they lead into bigger projects. And so, getting that is fuel for the team, is like, yes, we have this in the queue. Now, on the flip side, it can also be a little overwhelming and stressful because of, we've sold this, we can do it, but now we got to plan and fulfill this. Because when you're talking about six-figure projects, there's a lot of nuance and work, and to some extent, some liability, and making sure you navigate that properly. And so, we just launched a huge, massive website over the holidays, and it was stressful for the team.
Start businesses, but especially as you keep increasing in time. And to your point, 2005 to now, 2024, I mean, it's not like, you just got lucky several times, I'm, I'm just saying.
Yeah, and I prefer longevity versus selling, and it's serving versus selling. And so when we get a big project in, it's not just about the project, it's what we can do for them over time. And the great thing about web development or software application development is they're a lot stickier for the long term. When you're selling marketing campaigns and things like that, typically there's going to be churn for most agencies. And a lot of times that number is like 3 years and you start to see people fall off. That's a really good lifespan. For us, I've got clients that I've had for over 20 years. And so one of them just texted me a minute ago. We're actually looking at doing some marketing for a restaurant he is building. And that comes with trust and building a relationship.
Okay, client for over 20 years. You don't really hear that much nowadays either. So
no, and you know this. We did football season's over, which I know you're a big fan, and we've had many conversations on that. Last year, we were asked to work alongside with TCU for their university's national football campaign. So when they went to the football playoffs, the university likes to do a campaign, billboards, newspaper ads, all these, and they didn't have bandwidth. So they collaborated with us, or we collaborated with them on getting those assets. So when people landed in Phoenix for the Fiesta Bowl and they see horned frogs thrive in the desert and this whole ad campaign, our team actually did that. And I've been working with TCU since 2000. And so now I didn't sell that project because when I talk about delegating and letting go, I used to be all about TCU and just on campus every week almost. My account manager and creative director are the ones that actually facilitated that. I only saw the ads that were designed afterwards. And so as business owners, I think that's the thing that gets me most excited is when I can see other people in our team take that baton and run with it.
And I think that's a very important thing that you said so humbly is after a while, once you start getting to that $1 million mark and past that, you have to be okay with trusting important stuff to the right people, because to your point, it's not like you made that. You may have had the relationship, but you didn't seal that deal. So to be able to trust your team, I think is super important. Or else, to your point, like if you're trying to do everything yourself, it's only so many hours in a day, only so much you can do. But I think that's a super huge key to getting to where Brad is going to make this sound so, we're just doing our best. Brad is doing very well. And I think it's something to be said about the longevity of your company, because going back to what you said at the beginning, and I want you to get into this, you've seen marketing evolve. It's not like I came in 2021, Facebook ads have been, top tier since the day I started. In your case, you've seen it transition from print and TV and radio all the way to where we are now. So what are some of those things that maybe you learned back in 2005 that maybe still apply or helped you to better adjust to today's digital marketing landscape?
Well, thanks for asking that question, because I've been talking about this for a while, especially internally with our team, is everybody is very big on Facebook or Google ads. That's where all the money's going. But if you look at Google ad prices, let's just say over the last year, they've doubled. And so unless you double your spend, you're going to get half the leads, just generically speaking, unless you're doing some other things. And so as these prices go up, it's going to price some people out of it. I was talking to some people this week about service industry and how some of those leads are $250 to $500 per lead. That's expensive for, let's say, an HVAC company to go out and get a lead, because they may get a service call and it's only going to be $100. So they're losing money every time they do that spend, so they can't do it. So what are other avenues that are going to make sense where they can get the impressions or touches that you need? And so you could have a service-oriented business, or let's take a dentist, for example. You got a small location. A billboard might actually be a good play for a dentist in the right area, because people are driving by. Everybody needs a dentist. They're constantly seeing it. That's true. So it's impressions, it's eyeballs. And direct mail works really good. And so you work direct mail in correlation with the digital marketing and the retargeting, you're going to be in a much better position than if you just, I'm just going to focus on Facebook. Because obviously when, laws have come through and Apple's updated their algorithms and Facebook's done the same thing and they limit what you can do or target, it makes it a lot harder to market. But traditional marketing, I think, and even to some extent print, is going to come back, I think, full force, especially as we get inundated with AI information, that I think there's going to be such a cloud or a muddy mess of all this content that it's going to be really easy to get lost.
I'm trying to digest this because you're saying the old ways are going to come back.
I think you're going to have a meshing. You're going to need traditional marketing with digital marketing together. So, for example, you go to a trade show, and trade shows are really good for getting to the right people. And so if you have a print piece, what do? You put a QR code on it. Why do you put a QR code on it? So that way when they scan it, if they hit your site or your landing pages, now you can pixel them, which means you can then retarget them across the web. And so it's more of a cohesive marketing campaign versus just a niche strategic platform campaign.
So you're going from the standpoint of you think that going forward, digital marketing agencies need to be prepared to more holistically help the client hit his target markets versus just depending on Google ads or just Facebook ads. You need to be ready to do SEO, ads, maybe some print, maybe whatever the case.
Who's the greatest influencer of all time?
Of all time? I don't know.
There's a movie that was released about them about 2 years ago. You're going to know who they are.
Is this a trick question? Well, it can't be Hormozy. That means it can't be...
No, older than that. They make over $400 million a year off of royalties. Michael Jordan. Think about it. What are influencers? They're people. They don't necessarily have a product, but their image and their footprint is used to sell product. And so your athletes are generally influencers in the marketplace. Now you get all your Facebook. One that really paved the way, in my opinion, is Michael Jordan. There are others, but when you look at what deal he created and how he ended up getting ownership of his brand and all that, that is the first and probably largest influencer that we've ever seen.
I get, okay, when you're approaching it from that standpoint, okay. Because everybody wears Jordans, everybody wanted to be like Mike, everybody wanted to dunk. I don't know why I was thinking you meant like a specific marketing person.
Yeah, well, no, I phrase it to get you to think and lead you down the path and then surprise you with who I was going to say. But an influencer is anybody that can promote or sell a product, right? Or a business. And that's why when I said the personal brand and things like that's really big, but it also can be a detriment to a business, because if a business revolves around one person, then it's harder to scale. But if the image is around a marketing person, like Tiger Woods and him and Nike just split, that deal over the course of time was tons of money. And how much money did Nike make off of that? A ton. And so that's all marketing. And that's really the type of marketing we'll see moving forward, is utilizing influencers and traditional marketing and some guerrilla type marketing to get our products out there. And it really depends upon what you're trying to sell and who your target audience is. And so identifying the best places where that audience is at is probably the most important thing you can do, even before you start the ad buy planning.
So then, do you think that going forward, the Mr. Beast of the world are going to have more influence than, I mean, I use LeBron because he's kind of top, but like Luka, for example, is here in Dallas. Do you think, is it literally I am an influencer has more market value or market share than the actual actor or athlete?
Well, to some extent, think about this. Taylor Swift. She's a musician, but she's an even greater influencer. And a lot of the stuff they do is more PR related, if you think about it. You get eyeballs without having to pay ads for it. PR is huge. It's basically free advertising. And everything with the NFL, a lot of times people will do that just for the eyeballs and just for the exposure. Whether there's really, I don't know them personally, so hopefully there's a real relationship there, but sometimes they'll fabricate that. And I remember seeing a video of a young boy who had no idea who Taylor Swift was, and it's like, oh, this would be great for her. Whereas on the flip side, all the girls are saying, oh, this is great for Travis Kelce because nobody knows who he is.
And I'm like, he's a Hall of Fame tight end. What do you mean they don't know who he is?
Right, but if you look at marketing and digital marketing and what we're talking about, and those are two different um, demographics of people that don't know much about the other, but when you put them together, now they're much more powerful, and it's a lot bigger than you can imagine.
Dang, I didn't think you meant Taylor Swift. I see where you're going now. The personal brand.
Yeah, there's so many nuances, and I don't think you can just zero in on one thing moving forward. And AI is going to have an impact on how that plays out, how Facebook algorithm, how Facebook manipulates the algorithm based upon the AI, their own AI, and how we as humans can actually manage those campaigns. I don't think we really know what that's going to look like yet, and so we just have to be forward thinking as marketers, agency owners, business owners to really see the writing on the wall and how we need to navigate it.
It's like I have so many mid thoughts, but then I'm thinking about what you said and trying to. Because you're saying AI, because of the way that they'll be able to retarget and learn, will be. I'm sorry, y'all. I be really getting stuff out of this. I really be trying to think myself. Because in my head, I'm just going back to your Taylor Swift example. You have the Swifties, that's branding. You have the fact that she was in concert, branding. You have the fact that she was smart enough to finesse that into a movie deal, branding and smart. And so hypothetically, she can make one post and whatever happens, happens.
Well, you may not know this, and I wasn't planning on going down this route, but there was a rumor or a conspiracy theory about this whole deal. And, she's very green. She's got some politics in her background, right? And there were some negative articles based upon, I think, her plane and jet and what that does. And some people, or, conspiracy theorists, let's call them, were saying that a lot of this, of what she was doing, was to get articles and a lot of information posted on Google to push any negative information down from the page so you couldn't find it.
Wait, what? So
You never heard that? So
no.
a lot of times, like there's things called rip-off reports. Like if you get a bad report on rip-off report, it's really hard to get off of rankings. And the only way you can do that is to push it down. And so...
right, by putting more articles in, because then that moves to page 3 versus the good ones are page 1.
Correct. And so there was some negative stuff at one point, and all this press and everything has pushed all that really low in the search engines. And so, I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But I wasn't necessarily meaning to go down that route, but it's kind of a funny.
But I think that's worth discussing because, to your point, if we're talking about AI and generated articles, I mean, that's not hard to generate 10 to 20 more articles. You push them out, they're going to have her name on them, which means they're going to get the hits, which pushes it down. You eliminate your negative PR, which I know you're going to tell me that there may not be a such thing as bad or negative PR, I guess, hypothetically. Mm-hmm. It's just fascinating. I didn't know we were going this route either, but I'm glad. Because now we're talking about influencers, AI, holistic marketing strategies, not just ads, and all this because you've been in the game since 2005.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'll give you another example, and it's kind of marketing. It's more brand related. Is as a designer, I used to always think of the brand as the logo. When I first started, because I was a graphic designer, your brand is your logo.
Wait. The brand is the logo. Okay, I see where you're going. Keep going.
But that's not really the case. Most people, when you talk about branding, will talk about a specific aspect. If you talk to somebody who tells a story or copywriting, the brand is your story. But really, when you look at a brand, it's everything together. It's your name, which I went through one of Rachel Miller, a friend of ours, her name wasn't going to get trademarked, so she had to come up with a new name. So I did a whole naming session with her to come up with a new name that really reflected who she is and what their company does. And so name, logo, colors, fonts, the story, And that's where a lot of people stop with a brand, is those things. But you got to carry it on farther than that. Your culture, your audience, what you say outside of that, your marketing, that is all your brand. Because when I talk about culture, who
Yeah,
you
that's what I'm
are,
saying.
who you are to your employees as a company is your brand. Who you are to your clients is your brand. That's the whole story behind the company. And so everything that relates to who you are as a company is your brand. So a lot of people like to break it down to one thing, but you can't do that when you're talking about a brand.
Yeah, okay. Now I need to, y'all done had me taking notes today. Who you are as a brand can't be simplified into one single thing. I just want y'all to catch this. Now, again, Brad, as you see, super low key, so humble, so gracious. But he just dropped a gem. You can't approach branding just from the, oh, we have this great logo. No, it's how you treat people, how you treat your clients. It's your taglines, it's your website, it's what you post, all of these different, how you interact with people that form your brand. And you have to make sure that you're paying, I'm guessing, equal attention to each aspect of
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah. And we can bring this full circle back to the work to live, not live to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's a part of our brand. That's a part of our culture. And part of that is we get emails at 4:00 in the morning. I tell my team, don't send emails at 4:00 in the morning because you're creating a precedent, and that's not a part of our culture. So you can schedule it for 8 a.m. I'm not going to tell you. We're flexible with when and how our team members can work. And so, if it's 7:00 in the morning or 8:00 at night, that's fine. But just be aware of that precedent. And so, I'll give you, this is a great example. We were doing a Christmas party one year, and I have a lead developer, very analytical, very opinionated. And, we're about family and culture and all that. And he comes up to me after what we had done is we had given out Christmas gifts, bonuses to all the employees. Well, when we did it one year, we had envelopes, and we had all their names on an envelope. And I think we direct deposited, but just for the exercise, we took each envelope and then said something encouraging about that employee, of whether it was something they did that year, a great characteristic. And that was how we gave out the bonuses to all the employees. Afterwards, this employee comes up to me and goes, "Man, Ardent is the best place I've ever worked." He's like, when you talk about family, you mean it. If I ever have to do something with a family, you say, get your work done, take care of your family first. And it's like, I'll work here for as long as you want me, type of thing. And so turning that back around, that's who we are. That's a part of our culture. That's a part of our brand and our identity. So when you think of brand, it's your identity. That's another definition for it.
What you want to be known for
in the marketplace. Yeah.
I low key want to get into, can you change that if you've established something? But that's probably a whole different. Let's do
I
it.
mean, your identity can definitely evolve. We've evolved over the years in who we are and what we do. But as you do that, it's that message of how you communicate and that story you're trying to tell.
Now, you talked about this. That's a team story. So how have you grown this team over time? Because you said it was you and your partner. You hired person one. Now I think you said earlier, 20 to 30 team members in that range. So this is a lot of people. Well, maybe not some people, but a nice amount of people to manage. Mm-hmm. How have you been able to pick A+ players that you actually enjoy working with so that you can take the company where it currently is?
So this is kind of a multi-tiered answer. And part of it is when we first started out, we hired young people. And hey, my degree is in painting and drawing. It's not in business. My business partner sold cars. And so, I look at things and do things very differently than maybe most people do. And that's been a good thing over the years, and in some ways a bad thing. But we hired young people in the beginning, and I trained them. We trained them to think like me. And I'll give you an example. Our account manager, the one who sold TCU, if we sat in a meeting, they could sell what we do exactly like we do because they've been in enough meetings. They know our lingo. They know our language because we've trained them over the years. And so when we first started out, that's how we started. And there was a period where we went through a rough time because you get some young people that think they know everything. and it can make life hard. And so what we've really done over the years is when we find the right people, we lean into them more and see them grow. And so we've really seen some people turn into A players. And we haven't gone out and found C-level suite type people and bring them in randomly. The first acquisition I ever had was to hire our creative director, and that's a whole other story. And
wait, acquisition as in you bought another company?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and we mainly because we wanted to hire this. We wanted to talk to this creative director because we had a relationship prior to, and when we talked to the owner of that agency, he says, "Well, why don't you just buy it?" Because he had started another company which was taking off and didn't really have the time to focus, and the agency, the creative director, was really burned out, and he kind of anticipated him just quitting at some point. And so we took that over in like 2012 or 2013, and he's been with us ever since. And we picked up probably, we haven't picked up 5 or 10 clients from that, but we have probably 3 consistent ones still today.
Okay, now we got to go into acquisitions because this is a hot topic right now. Everybody wants to either prepare to sell their company or we want to buy one because of numerous reasons. Mm-hmm. If you don't mind, let's go back to when you acquired this company. You don't have to tell us for how much. That's personal. But
it was pennies on the dollar, I'll say that.
You said what?
It was pennies on the dollar.
Okay, let's stay right here. Now, the mindset of you even figuring out that you should buy it, that was started because you saw what?
We weren't going to buy it. We were wanting to talk to the guy who was running it and doing all the work to work for us. And so we had a conversation with the owner and said, "Hey, would you mind us talking to Paul's our creative director?" And he's like, "Sure." So we had the conversation, and in that conversation led to, well, why don't you just buy the company from us? And we worked out terms, and they were really friendly terms on both sides. But when you look at those clients still with us today, it was definitely, to our advantage. Now, the person that sold us the company, mm-hmm. they're way more successful than we are. And their companies, I don't know what they're worth, but let's just say they're multiple 8 figures.
Does that mean they're more successful? Okay. Again.
Yes, they're definitely way more successful than.
This is humble brag. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Excuse me. Okay, they're more successful. Okay, so you get this company. Now that you've acquired him, however long ago this was, what is your automatic thought? Because yes, you said we gained 5 to 10 clients who have still stayed, but you acquired him outside of getting that particular guy. In knowing you, there were multiple reasons. And the reason I'm trying to go this route is because a lot of our listeners are legit thinking about this. Mm-hmm. And who better to tell them than somebody who's done it successfully, still has the guy on the team, still has a lot of the clients from the deal. So there's some magic there that we would like for you to share.
So we believe in relationships, and we had worked with this person we were trying to hire through one of our clients for 5 years prior to that. And so there's a much deeper story about this transition as the owner, because he was technically my first employee. And that's a whole deeper story in and of itself. But we had a previous relationship with this person and knew how good they were. They were an A player. And that was what we really were trying to get. So if you think about going to hire a headhunter, you're going to pay a lot of money to go find A players.
20% at the minimum.
Correct. And so when you look at this transaction for hiring this in person, or if you're wanting to, a lot of times when you go through an acquisition, you want the assets, not necessarily the employees. Like if there's the book of business, that is, because you can assimilate that into your own team. And so for us, we wanted that person to assimilate in our team because we had the business. We needed the right people on the right seats. And so the cherry on top was the fact that there was some consistent clients that brought revenue, which was going to offset any, really bring in more revenue to offset his additional salary. But, the relationship side of things, it's also why we kept a lot of those clients for 5 to 10 years.
All right, let's go there because, we got to talk about the money. So now you make this deal. Can you tell the people the importance of looking at those numbers, right? Because we're literally helping a client with this right now where It's whatever it's valued at and whatever other stipulations and non-negotiables. Then there's the rev share component. Do you want them to, or do they want you to bring them on, or do you have to bring on their team? So there's a lot of different things here. What would you say are maybe some of the top things you should be looking for if you are going to buy another agency?
So the first thing, obviously, is looking at consistent revenue. Everybody likes to look at recurring revenue. For me, recurring revenue, there's some hidden things that you've got to watch out for when it comes to recurring revenue.
Oh, you got to stay right there. Hidden things like
lifetime value is one, but also longevity of the client. And what that means is how long is a client with that company? And like I said earlier, a lot of marketing teams may last 3 years. I know somebody whose churn was every 6 months. Now he had monthly recurring revenue over and over and over, but the clients were only with him for 6 months. That is a risky acquisition for me, because if a client only is going to last 6 months, there really is no recurring revenue.
That's fair.
Now, there was somebody posted on Facebook the other day, and it was, somebody touting SEO for a year. And this person was, basically talking about, I've had clients for 17 years or 7 years or whatever it is, touting I've got recurring revenue at a year. That's not recurring revenue. That's just, you've had a client for a year. Is it going to renew year over year over year? And so when I look at my business, I've always wanted to have consistent growth and look at the course of 20 years and what's that consistency. And every year, periodically, I'll look back at who's in our pipeline, because we do a lot of design work, and it's recurring revenue, but it's not what acquisition people may define as recurring revenue.
Right.
It's consistent, repeatable revenue, which to me, I think is more important than recurring revenue, because it's repeat business over and over, and there's a track record and consistency. That's what's most important. And so is there longevity to it? And so when you're buying a company, how long have these customers been there? Is there a long-term relationship? When they come over, can you maintain that? And so I'll give you a really crazy story. You've heard of Paycom, right?
Who?
Paycom. It's a payroll company. It's I don't know what their market share is, but it's in the billion, multiple billions. I mean, it could be $30 billion now. And so they have 91% retention rate, or at least this was prior to COVID. And so I don't know the numbers now, because I was in a group with one of the founders at one time. And so think about that, 91% retention rate.
Right, which is really probably top tier, excellent.
People don't leave. That's recurring. That's recurring revenue. Because when people put their payroll into their system or their benefits or whatever it is, you don't want to leave, because it's a very painful process to change payroll companies, to change anything to that level. Even CPAs, for example. You go from one to the other, they got to go back in the books, audit it. That's painful. So you leverage that. And so that's the type of business. And so for us as an agency, we don't necessarily like hosting websites, but it's the most sticky thing that we can do, because the fact that they're going to be with us for at least 3 years, more than likely 5. And then after 5 years, guess what happens? Typically, they have to redo their website. They're forced to do it because of technology updates or things like that. But in that, we are doing work consistently over those 5 years to maintain and grow that website, or technology or anything else. And we can also upsell to other services. And so, but as it relates to Paycom, which part of the story? When they started out, they were doing about, I don't know what the number, let's say $3 million a year, just for a fair number. And they were being targeted by a private equity firm in New York. And they pushed them off because they didn't want to sell for less than $100 million. And so they didn't sell for $100 million, but let's just say they did sell for multiple 8 figures, even though they weren't doing the revenue to account for that. But what they had was a software that this equity firm wanted to take and buy up other payroll companies and roll that up. into a bigger company, which then they could take to market, which they ultimately did, which is why they're publicly traded. And well, they didn't do that strategy. They ended up, instead of buying up other payroll companies, they targeted payroll companies because the CEO knew at the time that they were going to lose a third of the people right off the bat. Then they would keep a third of the people, and they would be fighting and tooth and nail to keep the other third. And so he's like, well, why don't you just target that third that you really want and not deal with buying them and dealing with the pain of everything else? And so that's what they did. And they're one of the biggest payroll companies in the country.
Okay, so when you're looking to buy, not just recurring, longevity of the account, the relationship, two more things that you would be looking for. Like if there's a company out there right now and they're like, we want you to buy us, Brad. He's already told you longevity, recurring, relationship with the client. Give them two more to make it an even five.
An even five. Consistent cash flow.
They got to have cash because cash is king, and
got to have cash. And I guess the big thing is the question of, are there any gotchas? And so any liabilities that can be hidden within the books that you don't know about. Could be debts, could be hidden ownership.
Wait. This should be on there though, because a debt. I mean, if it's a loan or a credit card, that should be on the balance.
It should be. But a lot of times in the books, you may not know that there's an investor on the side that's not necessarily mentioned in the books. And so, are there any hidden gotchas that you don't know about? And so you wanted five, so I'm just kind of making one up. But
I like it. I mean, that is very accurate because even with the deal we're helping the client with, there was a whole nother business involved. So it's like, hey, you got to make sure that his cash flow is not going to that one. Make sure that he's not taking some of the money out of this business and putting it there and he's just not telling you, et cetera. So I definitely agree with this.
Yeah. How is the business owner paying themselves?
Are they an S Corp or an LLC? Because that's going to matter. How much are they taking monthly or weekly?
Are they getting a salary or are they getting a distribution? If they're getting a salary, does that salary, and I know there's, as it relates to EBITDA, some of this is rolled back in based upon the situation. But if you take out that business owner that you're buying, do you have to replace that salary with somebody else? And so then do the numbers actually match up? Are they actually as profitable as they say they are? Or potentially could they be more profitable and don't realize it within your own system? And so it's looking at those key pieces, whether they're gotchas or even hidden gems within those things, that if you take out a business owner and you assume that, and they're paying themselves $300,000 a year, but you don't need that role, well, guess what? You just found $300,000 that's going to roll into the business as long as their revenue, you can continue to fulfill their revenue, and that you can actually take it to the next level. Because here's the other thing, this may be a sixth, is do you offer something more than what that current company does? Because if they've got a book of business, and let's just say they're hosting websites like we do, but half of them were built prior to COVID. Well, that is a pipeline of revenue that you could get by building new sites. So is there an offering that you have the other person doesn't, that you're going to be able to upsell and get new business from that existing business? Because for us, our best clients are our advocate. I mean, our clients are advocates. So our best sales typically can come from our existing clients because they trust and value what we do for them.
Yep. And I remember me and JC talked about that, where it's like, hey, if you only offer SEO, we may come in and do PPC and do ads. That's normal for us, but you didn't have it. So that's an automatic upsell of X amount of money, which therefore we just made it that much more profitable. So now adding in that part about the CEO won't be taking the $300,000 salary. So these are all those little things that you have to pay attention to in order to really, truly evaluate the brand and the actual company. That's some very good stuff. See, I told y'all, Brad knows. You just got to ask him. That's what it is. All right, let's talk about accounting, CFO, which we just kind of got into. I know that you have one. What are some of the cool things that they are doing or suggesting to help you to reach some of these goals, whether it's the consistent growth, maybe keep an eye on this company, they may be worth acquiring, or whatever the case is?
So I guess the biggest thing as it relates to CFO and that type of thought process is making sure your statement of work and your proposals are match what you're delivering, but also that scope creep doesn't kill a project or kill your profits. Because with what we do in websites or even marketing, you may sell something and the client will, can you do this? Or let's change this and do this. If it's not accounted for or if it's not communicated in the process and you don't get to add on that scope, then you're going to shoot yourselves in the foot, even to a point to where you'll lose money. And that's probably the biggest thing that we're watching out for. And so that's properly estimating, because you got to really be able to price what you do effectively within the market and not overprice, because then you don't get the business. So it's a real hard balance while maintaining efficiency inside. But that's probably our biggest pain point as it relates to financial, is getting so deep into a project and not communicating properly and having trouble getting additional money for additional work.
Okay. Favorite accounting or tax horror story?
Oh, gosh. IRS audit.
Oh, geez. You really went there.
Well, this is actually probably pretty good. So insurance is a pain point in my life, because we give our employees, we pay 70% of our employees insurance. And we used to use ADP, which is a PEO service. And we left that to bring it in-house and hired a broker to do that. Well, the broker in the middle of it's like, because I wanted to offer similar benefits. And there were some similar benefits that most carriers don't do. And so, you typically have vision and dental, and I don't remember what it was, but he's like, well, there's this plan. If your employees maintain basically exercise and these types of things and have a call with this company every quarter, they can get this added benefit. It falls under this IRS number tax plan. I can't tell you what it is now because it's been 6 years now, 7 years. And it all looked right. I had my CPA go through it. We talked to their attorneys. It was on the up and up. If we were ever audited, they were supposed to be there. Well, then the IRS changed the rules, and those deductions defined the rules, because it worked before, but then they redefined the rules, which changed that, which also means they could go backwards. Well, that company disappeared, and the IRS reached out and said, hey, what about this deduction you're taking for your employees? And went through that process of having to go through an audit and actually paying the IRS back a whole bunch of money was not fun. So if it sounds too good to be true, which I went through due diligence because it kind of sounded too good to be true, it probably is. That was the worst. And I did a sales tax audit. That wasn't as bad, but because I knew my stuff. They wanted to try to, in Texas, you have to charge sales tax for design services, print services, but also web development and hosting and services like that. And so there was a big client that we'd done 6 figures worth of work, and they wanted everything line itemed out. And so we had one item. Oh, it's like SEO. They claim SEO is data processing, so that's taxable in the state of Texas. And that was one of the line items, and they wanted to tax the whole line item. And so I had to go in and basically tell them they weren't right. But anyway, work through that. It was, nobody knew anything about what we do. And so I had to be the expert in the room with the tax guys and ended up working it out. But yeah, those are my 2 stories.
IRS and audits, never fun. Mm-hmm. All right, let's go rapid fire with these last few. This should be the fun section. Best investment to date, could be a thing, could be an experience, could be whatever.
Real estate, houses.
Okay. What are some?
I went the old school route. Invest in your personal home and then you just roll it until taxes change. That's There's other aspects to that, but real estate's always been probably the best. Stock market, not so good.
Okay, real estate. What are some things that you do to connect with their family during the week? Because you have multiple businesses. So you got real estate, you got the tech, and you got the big agency. So I know you have 3 kids and you're married. So what are some of those things that you guys do throughout the week or throughout the month to kind of all check in with each other?
So we'll have dinner together. I play golf with my son. My daughter runs track, so I've gone to the track with her. But we love movies, so we'll watch movies together. But we also go to church together on Sundays.
Okay, good one there. If you could go back to your high school and college self, knowing everything you know now, you get like 5 minutes to go back, what would you tell them?
Keep moving forward. I'm not one to go back and think of doing things differently, because the experiences that I've had throughout my life have shaped me to who I am today. And so I wouldn't be like, man, you should do this instead, or you'd be way ahead of the game if you did this. I would say just keep focused and continue to move forward, because I don't have any regrets. I mean, I've had some pain points definitely in my life, but the experiences through those things have shaped my character into who I am, and I have to value that.
Okay. What are 2 or 3 things that you would say contribute to your success? Like if I don't do this, and this, some people say like gym, read their Bible, meditate, workout, whatever, then my day is almost guaranteed to just not be where it needs to be.
I would say the number one thing is having a connection with God. I am a Christian, so get that out there. More so than just reading the Bible, it's that I'm a believer that God speaks to everybody, whether you believe in Him or not, and that's reciprocal. That having that connection on a daily basis is the most important.
Okay, that's the one you're gonna go with. Okay, I like it. I feel it. All right.
I can keep going deeper. You're rapid fire.
Here's your episode. You can go as deep as you want.
So now, just so I can answer it, repeat the question one more time, so I'll answer it a second way.
Question is, what are 2 or 3 things that you would say contribute to your success?
I would say number 2 is the support of my wife and family and friends.
Shout out the wife.
Mm-hmm. Without that, I wouldn't be able to do it, because she keeps a lot of the house in order, and she started her own business too. She's way cooler than I am, and she's pretty awesome. And I would say, my business partner is another one of those, because we're very opposite. So we kind of complement each other in that. Without that, it could be a very different story. And so I do the things that he doesn't want to do, and vice versa. So if we didn't have that, it probably wouldn't work. And partnerships is a whole other conversation. A lot of people talk about how difficult partnerships have been, or they, pain points. I knew my business partner prior
to that one. Oh man.
Yeah. We had a relationship prior to, which has been, maybe that's for another episode for a different time. And then lastly, probably the biggest thing, which we talked about earlier, was being able to delegate, trust, and allow people to fail. And
allowing people to fail. Dang it, we need another episode. Okay. Last 2 questions. How has your definition of success changed from when you started, so maybe back in 2005, to now?
That's a good question, because everybody has a different answer. And I think my definition of success is more based upon legacy, which, ironically enough, is kind of what you're talking about. Is my success isn't defined in money. And, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be rich or whatever. I never set out to do business to be rich or do that. I think I was a youth pastor at one point for a period of time, and I think that's leaving an impact on people's lives is more important than the money itself. If there's money there, that's great. But I think at a point where I'm at now is, how can I encourage leaders to be the leaders that they're called to be?
Yeah, that sounds like something a pastor would say right there. All right, last question. What has being a business owner taught you about yourself?
Wow, I'll think
Mm.
about that one.
Mm. We've had people say in the past, like, they've learned that they're impatient, that they will always find a way of least resistance, so they have to work really hard to combat that. We had some say that they just really hate managing people, but they love doing it.
So this is kind of a different kind of answer. So my dad was a workaholic throughout his life. So he would go into the office at 4:30 in the morning and work till 5 at night. And so how I got to know my dad was by going to the office with him. And so I kind of went the opposite way. And so now, especially when I was solopreneur, I mean, I would work 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week. It was at home, but I didn't have all the family around me and stuff like that. So it was very different.
Right.
And so I think I battle. Maybe it's laziness, but maybe it's that mentality of, oh, I'm not going to be a workaholic. So I don't do certain things. So I don't want to fall into that trap. But as a business owner, I would say impatient can be one of those for sure. But it's kind of weird because I can also be one of the most patient with our employees and team.
Okay.
And so they're
giving yourself grace.
Yeah, it's a hard answer for me. And, because a lot of times I never thought myself as a business owner. It took some time and some evolution in the business to where, hey, I need to be I need to be that leader. I need to build a culture. I need to define our mission, vision, and core values and things like that. And those things right there are really probably the most important things that business owners can do for their business if they haven't already done it. Because it defines who you are as a company, which goes back to the brand, the mission and vision, core values, and all that. Because it gives the employees understanding and direction of who you are and where you need to go. So on the flip side of that question, who I've seen myself, how I've grown as a business owner would be seeing those things and how, even though in my mind I've thought I don't have value or I'm not that guy, I now can see that I do have experience, I do have value, and I do have things that I can share.
I feel like that's the perfect mic drop moment right there. All right. We have now reached the end. This is your time. You tell the people, man, Brad was so cool. I want to connect with him, or I want to work with him, or I want to outsource stuff to him. How do they get in contact with you? Who do you serve so they can know you're talking to them? Any platforms or whatever you want them to check out, any materials, ebooks, lead magnets, etc. This is your time.
Okay, so easiest way to find me is bradball.com. It has both companies there. My handles for all my social accounts, it's I am Brad Ball. And follow me. I'm doing a lot more on LinkedIn. I'm trying to post something daily, and it's not AI driven, at least right now anyway. I'll write it typically on the morning of, just so it's pertinent. It's what I'm feeling, and it's random business type stuff. But connect with me on LinkedIn. And it's I am Brad Ball. It used to be Brad Ball Art, but people then started thinking Brad Ballart, and so I changed it. But I'm also, one thing we didn't talk about to leave you with, my degree is painting and drawing. So I'm actually a stage painter. So I paint on stage. And so you can go check out my art. And that's really the thing that I think I want to do a lot more of, is the creative aspect to what I do. That's probably gives me the most passion and excitement. And I'm finishing a book right now, by the way.
And what's the best platform to get you?
LinkedIn or email. Those are the two easiest things. And Facebook. I mean, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and that's the two platforms I'm on the most.
All right, cool. All right, so you heard it. If you want to work with Brad, clearly you see he's not new to this, as we say. He's true to this. He's been in the game for a while. We didn't even get into the partnerships. I got it written down. Running two different types of companies. Like, I'm so mad. But he has to go. Keep saving the world. Maybe we can coerce him into doing a
I'll come back. We can schedule it. Just let me know when. I'll make time for you, Cameron.
Yes. All right, but just to recap, though, there was a lot of stuff he talked about. He talked about acquisitions. Don't just look at the numbers that the person presents to you. Do your due diligence. Get your legal team and your accountant to go in and do some deep dive, so that way you can make sure that it's going to be worth it for you, that those clients will transfer, that it's long-term value. There's no hidden gotchas there. He talked about why we should be working to live, not living to work. About how your brand is just much more than a fancy logo, but it's everything that you put out there, your culture, how you treat clients, how you present yourself, the relationships that you make. So there's so many gems in this episode. Please go back, listen to it, share it, tag somebody, especially if you know they're about to sell or want to be acquired. Like, this is the perfect episode for that. So Brad, thank you so much again for coming. We're going to probably take you up on this offer for part 2.
Sounds good, man. Let's do it.
All right, y'all. So per usual, I told y'all season 2, we're taking it different. We're focusing on people who are on the road to the $1 million agency, or they're already doing it at that level, and now they're trying to take it even further. But we just want them to come on, share their journey.